speculate about some of the trends in global health metrics for a moment. So who dominates research? The US dominates research if you look at the abstracts in the booklet, particularly US universities. There are 23 abstracts from the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation. Chris is always talking about conflicts of interest and entanglements. 23 abstracts from the Institute of... That represents great science, but it also tells us that there's something weird going on in the field of global health science. Because surprisingly to me, some of the traditional public health agencies, globally and in countries which have strong public health agencies, at least in terms of the science presented here, have been relatively quiet. Is it possible that we are seeing a transformational shift of the center of gravity of metrics and evaluation and their capacity to do that work away from those traditional public health institutions and towards academic institutions? Now, we don't have a historical baseline to really answer that question. But I leave this meeting a little anxious about the health of our traditional and, I'll say it again, important, multilateral and national-based public health institutions. They are under threat, and we have to find ways to strengthen them. But a great sign of optimism at this meeting is an emerging set of strong voices from Latin America, Asia, and sub-Saharan Africa. And that's something that should cheer us and encourage us as we look forward. But aside also from some notable stellar exceptions and great performances, lunchtime was a barnstorming performance by Martin McKee, for example. I'm sad that from my part of the world, the United Kingdom and continental Europe, we had a rather weak research footprint at this conference. Europe stands for a set of values which I think still matter deeply. And in some respects, that European culture is also under threat, is also rather weak, is also lacking in some confidence. And that concerns me when I think about the contribution that I know Europe could make more strongly to this world of global health science. So I would conclude that although there are areas of strength, our community, although we've seen it vigorous this week, is also fragile. And despite some of the truly great work that's been presented, we cannot afford to be complacent about our future. And there are reasons, if not to be fearful, then certainly to be anxious. Our publicly funded universities are losing public funds as we go through this financial crisis, and they are under threat as a result. The incentives for young scientists to work in global health research are few. Love only goes so far. Our health agencies, as I say, are facing their own financial crisis, and yet the expectations placed on universities, our communities, are even greater, and they get greater year by year. So addressing the sustainability of our enterprise is, I'm sorry, an urgent priority. We have to reach out and make a more compelling case about what we do. To policymakers, into the political process, to the broader media, to funders, God help us, to the private sector, to schools, to really young people who are starting out. The front cover of our abstract booklet, take a look at it. Children playing around the water pipe. I showed that front cover to my daughter, who's age 10. And she looked at it, she hasn't travelled to a lower middle income country, and she was puzzled by it. And her words were, so happy to have water. And that sense of wonder that something as simple as be available to such a large part of our world's population is shocking to a 10-year-old. We need to reach out to all 10-year-olds and tell the story of global health and inspire them to commit themselves, if not to metrics and evaluation, then certainly to a life broadened by that understanding of what the world is today. A final question. Do you want this meeting to happen again? Yes! So if you do, we have to strengthen our collaboration. We have to organize ourselves better. We have to ask ourselves whether we need to create something. Do we need a society? Do we have some mechanism to create this conference every year, or every 2 years, or every 3 years? We've got to figure out how we communicate better amongst ourselves. We've got to use that incredible group intelligence that we do have to protect and augment what we do. As you know, I am not a matrician. I am not an evaluator. I am just an editor. All I can do is read and write. That's it. But as an editor, I do believe that reading and writing matter. Because as we look at all the catastrophes that surround us, and they do surround us, our predicaments can sometimes seem utterly insurmountable. There's a great writer called Imre Kertész. He's a Hungarian writer, and in his powerful novel, it's a short novel, called Kaddish for an Unborn Child, he reflects on his life as a Hungarian Jew living under a genocidal occupation. And he put it this way: the intolerably acute feeling that my life is hanging by a single thread. And that feeling is felt by literally billions of people on our planet. But there is a thread, still. And that thread, he writes, is my reason alone and nothing else. And he goes on to say that that consciousness, that the thread of life that he's holding on by, that consciousness implies a duty to understand the world, a duty to construct the world, to study it, and to describe it. And that view returns us to the idea of writing. The Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish writes in his book, Memory for Forgetfulness, almost in conversation with Kertész, language must force itself into a battle in which voices are not equal. And I find that a beautiful phrase. Language forcing itself into a battle in which voices are not equal. He goes on, when we write and call upon others to write, in the name of creative freedom, we want to liberate ourselves, our countries, our minds, and live in the modern age with competence and pride. We announce that we are children of this age and not of the past or the future. I think that is what you have announced this week. That we are of this age. That we are using our creative freedom, our reason to speak on behalf of billions who are living by a thread in this world. That's what you've achieved this week. Please, let's do it again and do it soon. Thank you.